The bell above the cafe door chimed softly, letting in a crisp breeze of autumn. Emily was wiping down the counter, her hands moving mechanically, though her mind was elsewhere. On the bills stacked in her purse, the double shift she had been pulling, and the bright little girl coloring quietly at the corner table. Life had taught Emily to survive. She wasn't bitter, she was grateful. For her daughter, for the tiny cafe she managed, for the chance to rebuild after the heartbreak she thought she'd never recover from. But some wounds never fully closed. The door swung open again, and this time, she froze. There he was, Michael. The man she had once loved with every piece of her heart. The man who had walked away years ago, choosing ambition over them. Now older, sharper in his tailored suit, he looked every bit the powerful CEO she had read about in newspapers but pretended not to notice. For a moment, time seemed cruelly suspended. Her chest tightened, memories rushing back, late nights of laughter, whispered promises, the day he left with nothing but a note on the table. Emily turned away quickly, hoping he'd order a coffee, leave, and never realize what he had left behind. But fate had its own plans. A small, sweet voice broke the silence. "Mommy, can Daddy sit with us?" The cafe stilled. Emily's heart dropped. Michael's eyes darted to the little girl, brown curls framing her face, the same shade of hazel eyes that stared back at him in the mirror every morning. He blinked, shaken to his core. "Daddy," he whispered, his voice cracking. Emily's throat tightened. She had shielded her daughter from this moment for years, never once speaking his name, never letting her grow up feeling unwanted. But children, children had their own way of knowing truths hidden in their hearts. I think you're mistaken," Emily murmured, trying to usher her daughter back to her seat. But Michael stepped closer, his hands trembling. "How old is she?" His voice was quiet, almost pleading. Emily's lips pressed into a thin line. "Old enough to know that you weren't there." The words cut sharper than any blade. Michael staggered back, guilt flooding his eyes. For years he had told himself he left to give her a better life, that success was the only way to prove his worth. But standing in this modest cafe, looking into his daughter's eyes, he realized the truth. He had missed everything that really mattered. Silence lingered heavy until Emily's daughter, innocent and unburdened, tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, will you sit with us? I saved you a cookie." His knees nearly buckled. This little girl who owed him nothing offered him kindness he didn't deserve. Slowly, he sat. The minutes stretched into an hour. Michael listened to his daughter's stories, laughed at her silly jokes, and marveled at her boundless heart. For the first time in years, Emily saw the man she once loved, not the CEO, not the cold figure in business headlines, but the boy who once dreamed beside her under the stars. Still, pain lingered. Could wounds so deep really heal? As he prepared to leave, Michael placed a business card on the table. "Emily, I don't expect forgiveness, but please, let me try. For her, if not for us." Emily stared at the card, torn between anger and hope. Then, her daughter climbed into Michael's lap, hugging him tightly. "Don't leave this time, Daddy." Tears spilled freely down his face. The weight of years, mistakes, and regret seemed to melt in that child's embrace. Emily's chest ached, but deep inside, a small flicker of hope ignited. Not for romance, not yet, but for the possibility that her daughter could have the father she deserved. She nodded softly, one step at a time, and for the first time in years the cafe didn't feel so heavy. At first Emily doubted he'd last a week. She had seen men like him, busy, powerful, always with something more important than family. But every morning, he arrived at the café before work, sometimes just to share breakfast with his daughter, sometimes to quietly wash dishes in the back while Emily rushed through orders. It wasn't about money anymore. Michael could have written checks to cover her bills for years, but he didn't. Instead, he showed up, with time, with presence, with effort. One afternoon, when the cafe was nearly empty, Emily finally broke the silence between them. "Why now, Michael? Why after all this time?" He looked at her, his eyes tired yet sincere. "Because I finally realized success doesn't mean anything if you have no one to share it with. I thought I was giving you freedom by leaving, but really, I was just running from my own fear of not being enough, and I lost the most precious years of my life because of it." Emily studied him, her heart warring between resentment and compassion. She remembered the sleepless nights, the loneliness, the tears she shed with no one to hold her. Could she ever trust him again? Before she could answer, their daughter came running from school, waving a paper in her tiny hands. "Mommy, Daddy, look! I got a gold star!" In that moment, Emily saw it. The joy in her daughter's face, the way Michael knelt down, lifting her high into his arms as though nothing else in the world mattered. That simple, pure love, the one thing their daughter had always deserved. Later that night, as Emily locked up the cafe, she whispered to herself, maybe second chances aren't about forgetting the past. Maybe they're about choosing what matters most now. The weeks turned into months. Michael didn't miss a school recital, a parent-teacher meeting, or even the little things, bedtime stories, scraped knees, Sunday mornings at the park. Slowly, Emily's walls began to crumble, not because of grand gestures, but because of consistent kindness. One evening, as the three of them closed the cafe together, their daughter slipped her small hand into both of theirs and said with a sleepy smile, "See, Mommy, we're a family again." Emily met Michael's gaze. There were no promises spoken, no dramatic declarations, just quiet understanding. Healing wasn't instant, but it was happening. And as the cafe lights dimmed, Emily realized that sometimes life gives you the ending you never expected, but always hoped for.